This is a chart showing how men perceive women's attractiveness. Looks pretty normal. Men tend to perceive women's attractiveness on a standard bell curve. On the scale of 1 to 5, the average is 2.83, with the most common rating being 3. 8% are above the 4 and 17% below a 2. All pretty normal. And here is how women perceive men. Yeah, doesn't look so good for men. Taking this at face value, only 1 in 6 men are above average in an absolute sense. And if we translate this plot to something more familiar, like IQ, then we have a world where women think 58% of men are brain damaged. When we dive a little deeper though, it becomes clear this isn't a men are too ugly to date thing, it's a men are too ugly to hook up with thing. This is OkCupid, one of the biggest dating sites in the world, and this is Christian Rudder, the former CEO of the platform. In 2009, looking to promote the platform, Rudder and his team began to release data from the site, giving us an insight into what the dating market really looks like behind closed doors. In 2014, he released the book Dataclysm, summarizing much of the data revealed by the site. Within the book, Rudder displays the differences between how men and women view each other's attractiveness on the site. But when asked about it in an interview promoting the book and platform, this is what he had to say.
Tinder, those curves move even further apart. Match, they move closer together. The male curve barely moves. It's really the female curve that moves around. The men kind of have the same curve on all 3 sites, and it's the female curve that moves around.
When OkCupid was acquired by the Match Group in 2011, Rudder got access to the rest of the Match Group's biggest platform's data. The 2 biggest of which at the time, Match.com and Tinder, give us a lot of insight into what's really going on here. Although charts or data were never posted, we can estimate based on what Rudder said. This is an estimate of how women perceive men on Match.com, and this is an estimate of how women perceive men on Tinder. We can see that for women, as the dating site becomes more casual in nature, the standards climb. Although people like to push the narrative that women are delusional and have too high standards, the data seems to say the relatively high standards are only for casual intimacy, which when you consider the additional risks women take on with intimacy, the relatively high standards seem reasonable. Essentially, women are thinking, if I'm going to take the risk of a casual hookup, you better be attractive. The next question is then, what makes someone attractive? To answer this question, I'd like to bring forward a study from 2016, looking at what women look for in a speed dating context. The study started by giving women a list of 6 traits and asking them to assign points to each trait based on how important it was to them. The average distribution of points the women provided looked like this. All attributes given near even value. After completing the dates, the women were asked to assign the points to the men at the dating event. Then, which men they were going to see again. This is the chart displaying the actual distribution of what was seen as important by the women at the event. Physical attractiveness was by far the most important attribute, with the amount of positive responses and level of physical attractiveness having an astonishingly large correlation coefficient of 0.801. For comparison, the correlation coefficient between IQ and academic performance is 0.54. Think about that for a second. For those wondering, online dating shows an even stronger correlation, with the data from OkCupid showing a 0.92 correlation coefficient between physical attractiveness and the perceived attractiveness of a profile. Confirming what a lot of men have recently begun to realize, physical attractiveness is just as important to women as it is for men. Women just don't admit it. Another thing I think most people aren't aware of is the effect of attractiveness is exponential. The 2011 study, What Makes People Click, Mate Preferences in Online Dating, looked at various traits to see what makes people attracted to each other. The study separated the 22,000 participants' facial attractiveness into deciles of attractiveness, with the top 10% getting separated into 2 groups, giving the top 5% their own group. To no one's surprise, the study found attractive people were significantly more likely to receive messages and match requests, but the distribution was eye-opening. We see a steady climb in matches and messages as participants get more attractive, until we get to the top 5%. Miles above the rest, the top 5% of men dominate in online dating, seen as more than twice as desirable as the 90th percentile man. Data released from OkCupid touts similar, if not even more telling results, showing the exponential effects of physical attractiveness. Each percentile makes a bigger and bigger difference the closer you get to the top. I don't want the takeaway from this video to be that looks are the only thing that matter, because they're not. Another large contributor to a man's attractiveness is his social status. If we look again at the What Makes You Click study, we can see a large contributor to a man's perceived attractiveness is his occupation. Irregardless of a man's individual income, the industry he worked in had a large impact on if women attempted to match with him. This is a chart showing the attractiveness of different industries men in the study worked in, and my fuzzy best estimates of the average salary in those industries. As you can see, there's a correlation between the average salary in the industry and the attractiveness of it, but it's certainly not a one-to-one. Industries like computer engineering, science, government, politics, and financial accounting make a large amount of money, but don't give the men in them much of an attractiveness boost. Industries like firefighting, law enforcement, and military don't make a ton of money, but give the men in them large boosts in their attractiveness. And over here, less attractive than being unemployed are service, hospitality, and labor. And up here, in the corner, the highest paid and most attractive career option for men, legal/attorney. Maybe your parents were right about considering law school. Something I've heard discussed a lot over the last few years is how men get better with age while women only get less desirable. And while the former is true, the latter isn't. This is a chart showing the age at which men and women are most desirable to each other at every age. The thing that sticks out the most is that men's preferences don't really change as they age, always being the most interested in women 20 to 22. I think we all knew that though. Something I don't think most men realize is that the prime demographic they're interested in, 20 to 22-year-old women, are most interested in 21 to 25-year-old guys. That's your peak, guys. It's not your early 30s, and it's certainly not 38. It is worth noting that as a man, you'll receive the most attention from women in general between the ages of 25 to 30. This essentially means men have two primes. A first prime from the ages of 21 to 25, when prime women, 20 to 23, are most attracted to you. And a second prime from ages 25 to 30, when you get the most attention from women overall. I think it's also worth pointing out that even women start wanting to date a little younger as they get older. Dating truly is a younger man's game, and despite men seeming to age better in women's eyes than women do in men's eyes, Father Time continues to stay undefeated. Now, there's one more thing in the What Makes You Click study I want to show you. When reading through the study, I found this. The researchers concluded that both men and women's height preferences depend on their own height. Basically, being shorter than a woman will on average make you be seen as significantly less attractive than a man of the same height as her, and in a whole nother category than men taller than her. I don't think this is too surprising, but here's something I think will be. Yes, this is men's height preferences for women. Outside of being reversed, men prefer women shorter than themselves, men's height preferences for women are nearly identical to women's height preferences for men. Which makes sense when you think about it. Would you want to date a girl 5 inches taller than you? Women feel the same way about dating men shorter than them. Although men and women think similar in regards to height, one thing they don't think similar in regards to is divorce. A commonly thrown around statistic is that women initiate 69% of divorces. But here's another stat that makes it even crazier. If we look at the percentage of same-sex divorces that are male-male versus female-female, we see that female-female relationships are responsible for 78% of same-sex divorces. Female-female marriages are more common than male-male ones though, 55-45 split. So, we have to adjust for this. After we adjust for the differences in relationship commonality, the relative split of same-sex divorces are 69% women, 31% men. Despite men and women not even being involved in each other's relationships, the divorce percentages remain the same. Pretty unbelievable, right? The current common hypothesis is this is due to trait neuroticism, which measures one's sensitivity to negative emotions. If you take a random man and woman, the woman will be more sensitive to negative emotion, more neurotic, 62% of the time. This is why women are commonly seen as more emotional and volatile, both sub-characteristics of neuroticism. What this means for divorce, though, is that in 62% of relationships, the woman will feel the problems in the relationship more than the man will, which explains a large portion of this seemingly astonishing statistic. And there you have it. 8 charts that hopefully change the way you see dating and relationships. If you find this kind of stuff interesting, subscribe to my newsletter down below. It's free, with no ads, and I go over concepts and charts like these every Thursday at 9 p.m. So if you find this stuff interesting, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.